South of the Kilridge Mountains, west of the chasm, north of the jungles of Plonst, and east of the dark sea of darkness, lay the broad and blighted wasteland of white stone and red sand, called the Woes of Shreve. The Woes were lethal. Humans couldn't survive there because the blistering sunlight would sizzle their skin and bake their bones in a matter of minutes. None, that is, except those who managed to slather themselves with blood rock dye, which was very expensive and very hard to come by. Hard to come by unless, of course, you owned one of the few blood rock mines that were well guarded by all manner of deadly things, like assassins and mad Fangs who survived the war, and packs of slittervipes whose needle teeth could skin a Tahala whole in the time one could say, "Oh my, I'm all out of blood rock dye and we're hours from shelter. It was nice knowing you." But there was no need to venture into the Woes of Shreve if you had the sense enough to live in Yorshadun. West of the Woes, on the edge of the dark sea of darkness, the sprawling city of Yorshadun adorned the desert with bright spires and the blues and greens and purples of flags fluttering and robes billowing and turbans bobbing along the thousands of narrow streets. Butar music played, Tahalim gruttled, merchants shouted, and children laughed in the streets, while in the nearby maze of piers hundreds of ships creaked as waves slapped hulls, and gull-birds squawked and eels shrieked. Historian and basket critic Hodar von Vudicum described Yorshadun as that chaotically exquisite collision of the Dunelands. It was hot and sandy, but close as it was to the sea, no blood rock was needed there, and so the city was quite safe. Safe, that is, except for the clandestine guilds of thieves and assassins, the constant crush of traffic, the danger of being trampled by a Tahala or lost in the labyrinth of passages and alleyways and high rope bridges slung between windows. A dagger, a steady hand, and a quick eye were quite useful in Yorshadun, though it must be said that not every one of the millions of people, trolls, and occasional ridge runners was a wicked thief. Some of the thieves were, in fact, quite friendly. There in the heart of Yorshadun, somewhere south of Prince Maja's palace, a boy in black leggings and a billowy blue patchwork shirt climbed barefoot through the second-story window of a pleasant white building and woke a wrinkled old woman from her midday nap. "It's me," whispered the boy. "Safiki," the old woman said as she stirred. "Where have you been?" The boy glanced out the window at the dusty city and the spires of the palace. He wouldn't know where to begin, and he didn't want to worry her. "All over," he said, grateful that today she remembered who he was. Some days she greeted him as a total stranger. "You would tell your grandmother if you were in trouble, wouldn't you?" She lifted her trembling hand and touched his face. Her white eyes looked in his direction, but he knew they couldn't see a thing. "Have you bathed?" "Yes, Mamada," he said. What he didn't say was that he'd done so 4 days ago, and only because he had been hiding from the port warden. Surely, he thought, leaping from the deck of a ship and swimming under the pier with my pockets stuffed with plum-yums counted as bathing. He had at least entertained a passing thought about his grandmother's insistence on cleanliness after he had climbed out of the sea and spread out on the roof of the warden's badan, listening to the gull-birds and the shouts of the shipmates as they searched hopelessly for him among the many ships. The plum-yums had been delicious. "That reminds me," Safiki said. "I have something for you." His grandmother grinned, revealing her single tooth and her wonderful rumple of tanned wrinkles made deep and soft after years of smiling. "I brought you this." He removed a plum-yum from one of the folds in his shirt and offered it to her with a bow of his head. "Safiki, my dear one, you are so kind to your mamada." She took the fruit and smelled it rapturously. "These umamri only feed me soup," she grumbled with a glance in the direction of the door. "What they don't know is that I have the most fearsome tooth in all of Yorshadun." She winked a blind eye at Safiki and reached into her mouth, wrenching the old yellow tooth to and fro a few times, before removing it altogether with a crunch that made the boy wince, even as he stifled a laugh. She wiped the false tooth on her sheets and held it up to Safiki as if he had never seen it before. The bottom end of the tooth had been ground to a point, and its edge was sharpened like a blade. "Ha!" she crowed, and then she clapped a hand over her mouth and lowered her voice to a whisper. "Your mamada could eat a flank of charred Tahala rump if she wanted."